At the center of apprenticeship to Jesus is a symbol, and it's the symbol of the cross. Now, over 2 millennia now, we've become numb and desensitized to the horror of this image. Crucifixion had been around for hundreds of years before Jesus, but the Roman Empire turned it into an art form in its quest for world domination. One historian writes this: crucifixion was quintessentially a public affair. Naked and affixed to a stake, cross, or tree, the victim was subjected to savage ridicule by frequent passerbys, while the general populace was given a grim reminder of the fate of those who assert themselves against the authority of the state. Now, the ancient Near East was an honor-shame culture, which is a bit hard for you and I to wrap our head around, although with social media, we are fast becoming an honor-shame culture. But in that kind of a world, the most shameful way to die was by crucifixion. In fact, it was so shameful that it was illegal to crucify a Roman citizen, no matter the crime. It was reserved not only for non-Romans, but for the worst of the worst. In fact, it was so ignominious that the writers of the Gospels, all four, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, can't even bring themselves to describe it in any details. You read the New Testament, there's no Mel Gibson-esque passion kind of story. It's not there. All they can bring themselves to write is one line, quote, "and they crucified him." It would be like today if Jesus was killed on YouTube in front of billions of people by ISIS with a machete after being stripped naked and beat to a pulp and abused. So inhumane and barbaric and grotesque and embarrassing that we could not even talk about it in public. All that to say, the cross in Jesus' day was not this cute, kind of sanctimonious Christianese symbol. It was not an item of jewelry that you would wear around your neck. It was not a logo on a church website. It was not a piece of art in a church building. It was a symbol, and an evocative one at that, but it was a symbol of death. The invitation of Jesus was essentially this, in my paraphrase: if you want to really live, then first you have to die. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, if you've ever read his work, in his kind of famous book, The Cost of Discipleship, he had that famous line, "When Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die." There's a lot of truth in that. Now, for a lot of people, it's a call to a literal death. Bonhoeffer is a great example. He was killed by the SS in Nazi Germany. Our brothers and sisters right now living under ISIS in the Middle East are yet another example. But this has been going on ever since Jesus and the 12. James, if you've read the New Testament, in the book of Acts, was the first martyr, beheaded by Jerusalem by Herod. Matthew was killed by the sword in Ethiopia. Mark was dragged by horses through the streets of Alexandria. Luke was hung in Greece. Thomas was speared to death in India. Peter was crucified upside down in Rome. John was dipped alive in boiling oil and then left on a rock in the Mediterranean to die. I hope that should the need ever arise, that you or I would be willing to suffer the same fate in our apprenticeship to Jesus. But thankfully, for most of us, at least in a Western context, that's not a problem, it's not an issue. It's not a call for you to a literal death, but to a metaphoric one. And I think Jesus clearly has that in mind. In his language, it's a call to self-denial. John Calvin, who I don't normally quote, but he used that phrase self-denial to summarize the entire life of discipleship. So if you were to ask the reformer John Calvin, in one phrase, what is following Jesus all about? He would answer you, it's all about self-denial. To say yes to Jesus is to say yes to 1,000 other things. To say yes to your desire to become an apprentice and be with Jesus and become like Jesus and do all the stuff that he did is to say no to 1,000 other desires. To say no to spending your time and money however you want. To say no to a life of individualism. You give up your autonomy and your control and instead live in community with a group of people to your right and to your left. It's saying no to self-expression of your sexual identity or desire or whatever, however you want, by whatever standard makes the most sense to you at this point in your life. The cross is saying whatever, whenever, whatever, wherever, whenever. Whatever you say to do, I'll do it. Wherever you say to go, I'll go. Whenever you say to go there or not go there, I'm yours, all in 100%.